TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Welcome to our third and final MIPCOM special show, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Jake Kanter, international editor at Deadline Hollywood. Welcome, Jake. Your first time on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. And how are you finding MIPCOM? This is our last MIPCOM special show. It's obviously been very different. We've covered that off. It's been a different market. How have you seen it?
It's been a very strange 3 days. I'm obviously in more normal times, we'd be perhaps sitting in a bar somewhere and ruminating on the market and the gossip that we've picked up and the people that we've met and the shows that we've seen generating a bit of buzz. There's kind of been none of that. I mean, the biggest buzz we've had is the kind of glow of our screens, unfortunately. That's the only heat that has been really generated in the market. It's almost been a bit unsettling how quiet it is, really. It's usually chocker with announcements. My inbox is always bursting with press releases around this time of year, but it's been quieter. There have been clearly fewer deals. The stature of those deals has not been as high profile. I think it's just sort of it speaks to the two things. I mean, clearly the pandemic has had an impact on when studios are announcing shows and deals. Many studios are hosting their own showcases for buyers. So we've seen the likes of ITV Studios, Sony, BBC Studios have also done their own thing. They're going direct to market and talking to their clients in a much more regular way. They're reaching out on a more consistent basis, and it's not focused around 2 times a year. These conversations are going on all the time. And the second thing I would say is it sort of speaks to the fragmenting of MIPCOM. I think MIPCOM is really important because it brings the industry together. There's no substitute for that physical interaction. But what we're seeing less of at MIPCOM is the deal making that perhaps used to happen. It's not the place where people go to strike lots of agreements, both for finished tape and for shows that they're selling off paper. It's much more of a sort of networking opportunity, a chance to refresh relationships and to catch up with people that you're friends with in the industry.
Yeah, and it's somewhat of a launch pad as well, isn't it, for these deals sometimes as well. As you say, these conversations are going on throughout the year, and MIPCOM is that launch pad, and we've been seeing over recent years bigger and bigger talent coming to MIPCOM to launch their new big drama series, for example, or unscripted projects. So we're just seeing it evolve, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things, I spoke to 10 distribution chiefs over the last couple of weeks just to get a sense of where they're at. And Louise Pedersen, the chief executive at All3Media International, I mean, she said one of the things she's going to miss most is sort of generating heat around shows. And she said that things can really steamroll at a market. They can pick up momentum quite quickly through word of mouth. And when I say word of mouth, I mean genuine word of mouth, people talking to each other while they're milling around the closet. That element of the market has just not been there. And the other thing I'd say about that is, this is something that a couple of other people said to me, is there's not that opportunity to kind of peek over other people's fences. You can't go to the market and just have a little look at what your competitors are up to. And I think that is a huge part of what makes these festivals so vibrant and fun. And what has been lacking from a virtual festival is you can't do those things in the same way.
That's really interesting, actually. I hadn't considered that. I mean, certainly I'd considered the ability to instigate or fan the flames of a bidding war around a really particular hot property. I mean, I've certainly seen that over the years, and that's when a market can really come into its own, that real sort of human interaction and buzz that you can create around a property. But I hadn't considered a lot of these big distribution companies looking at what the competition's doing and perhaps looking and adapting that into their own strategy.
Definitely. Yeah, it clearly goes on. I mean, it's part of the fun of a market, isn't it? You hear what your rivals are up to. You sort of collect gossip and market intelligence. And the other thing, one of the other interesting things is that studios increasingly use MIPCOM and other similar markets as an opportunity to to refresh their sort of internal communications. They gather, they come together as colleagues, and have brainstorming sessions, or they go out and they entertain each other. They are chances to catch up with colleagues that you may not see all year round, and that has been absent as well.
Well, that's an interesting aspect, and something that one aspect that we've all missed a little bit. How about deals that you've noticed over the last few days, Jake? I gather there's HBO Max have been snapping up a few shows.
That's right. It's been fairly slim pickings in terms of really sort of eye-catching deals, but the one thing that's become quite noticeable in the last few days is that HBO Max has become really aggressive in the international market. We're talking today on the Wednesday, and they've announced that Adult Material, which is a Channel 4 drama porn star series starring Hayley Squires, that's been picked up by HBO Max from Banijay Rights, and that's a show that has generated quite a bit of buzz over here in the UK, and I'm sure will perform well for HBO Max. Another big buzzy show here in the UK, I Hate Susie, which was the sort of phone hacking drama from Succession's Lucy Prebble, and stars Billie Piper, who also co-created it. That has also been picked up by HBO Max. So those are two sort of pretty chunky, exciting UK dramas that they've come in and swooped for. Another series, again announced today, was a series called Possessions from Studio Canal, which is a French-Israeli series in which a woman is charged with murder, the murder of her husband on the night of their wedding. And then another big Israel-led project called Valley of Tears, which depicts the 1973 Yom Kippur War through the eyes of young combatants and soldiers.
Isn't that the most expensive Israeli TV project ever?
That's right, yeah. And I guess that kind of underlines the ambition of what HBO Max want, doesn't it? I mean, and that's no surprise when they're competing with the likes of Netflix and Amazon in a market which is becoming so intensely competitive. And then the other thing, I mean, those are all dramas, but they are close to announcing a deal with Banijay Rights for the Channel 4 show The Bridge, which is a reality competition series which launched here in the UK over the weekend, in which contestants build a bridge to an island, but they're going to come on board as a co-producer in that. So, and Jen Kim, who's the international originals chief over at HBO Max, she kind of hinted at some of this at the Edinburgh Television Festival. So she's really made good on her promise.
This is slightly unrelated, but there is a connection. We saw a lot of tabloid news in the UK tabloids in particular around Lily James and Dominic West, who were photographed in an embrace in Paris. And we certainly saw a lot of coverage around the making up in front of the press of Dominic West and his wife. But there's a project as well linked to this, isn't there?
Yeah, it's been a fun distraction for the tabloids over the last few days. But behind it all sits a show called The Pursuit of Love, which is made by Open Book and Moonage Pictures. It's one of the sort of buzzier shows of the Cannes market this year. It's an adaptation of Nancy Mitford's classic novel, and is being made for the BBC and Amazon. From the sounds of it, it sounds really fun. I've seen a little bit. They showed a little bit during a BBC Studios session on the MIPCOM Online Plus platform. Emily Mortimer, who is adapting the novel and directing the show, talked about how it's going to be inspired by Sofia Coppola's films, particularly Marie Antoinette, which is clearly broke some rules of sort of traditional period dramas. Things like Marie Antoinette running down a hallway in her Converse doesn't. There's definitely some rule breaking, some subverting of the genre going on, and I think we'll probably see some of that in The Pursuit of Love as well. But yeah, during this session, it was interesting to see that Lily James was looking on longingly and gazing at Dominic West. It's something I actually noticed before the stories about their tryst came out in the press. It was quite noticeable, funnily enough. But in the drama, he plays her dad, so that's an unusual twist.
It certainly is. That's a very buzzy show in many ways. I've also seen that you've highlighted a new film about a water shortage crisis being shot by Fremantle.
Yeah, I mean, so it was shot. So Fremantle are distributing around the world, and it was actually made by Keo Films and a company called OOS Pictures. But it's an unusual one. It's been filmed over a period of 3 years. There's a guy called David Wallerstein who has personally financed the shoot. And he is one of the earliest executives at the Chinese tech giant Tencent. He's got a very grand job title. He's called Chief Exploration Officer. Quite what that means, I'm not sure, but it sounds great on paper. It's kind of his brainchild. He was tired. I mean, he sort of developed a real fascination with the Earth's water shortage crisis and wanted to unbury dry information from white papers in a quite chastening and dramatic film, and that's what they hope to do with Day Zero. And they've got a really good director involved, a guy called Kevin Sim, who has won Emmys in the past, and was clearly, when I spoke to him, was really passionate about the project. And they've got Chiwetel Ejiofor involved as well to do the narration.
That one sounds, the timing for that as well, when we're all thinking about sustainability, is also an interesting one. So look forward to seeing how that one develops. And you've also got the scoops on a couple of big brand stories in TV this week.
Yeah, so away from the market, I mean, I think some of the biggest stories actually have been away from MIPCOM, which is unfortunate for MIPCOM, but sometimes the way it goes, isn't it? And I mean, it's clear that coronavirus is having a big impact on production. I mean, we know that. Obviously, we've gone through a period where production has been shut down for many months. And now we're in a period where a lot of shows are back up and running, but are having to deal with the consequences of even just small numbers of crew and cast testing positive for the disease. And the inevitability of that is that they have to pause and apply the brakes for a period of time. And this has impacted Britain's Got Talent this week. So Deadline broke the story yesterday about the fact that the Christmas special had to be shut down on the eve of filming commencing after 3 crew members tested positive for coronavirus. And sources tell me that it's now very unlikely that show is going to be made. And it probably won't be until next year. If they do decide to remount it, they'll do it again next year, perhaps. And we've seen it again today on a show with Little Mix, which Little Mix are making for BBC One. It's called Little Mix: The Search. And again, there has been a small number of positive tests, and they are postponing this Saturday's episode and not returning until the weekend after. And it just gives you a sense of the balls that producers are having to juggle. I mean, it's a very complicated jigsaw that they're having to work, and just a handful of cases can completely derail a production. And then the other big story that we've been covering is the fact that Keira Knightley had to pull out of a very glossy, ambitious Apple period drama called The Essex Serpent. And I mean, she had literally been announced in the lead role only a few weeks ago, but has decided to pull out because she doesn't think that she can manage her childcare because of the second wave of coronavirus in the UK. She gave the producers notice. They had to halt pre-production. They were planning to get cameras rolling at the end of November, but the show has gone completely on hiatus now and won't be returning probably until next year with a new lead cast member.
Well, I mean, as you say, it really highlights the challenges that particularly drama producers are facing now when they're going into pre-production and making all these new arrangements for a COVID-safe production, and then right at the final hurdle, almost when they're about to actually start filming rolling, is to get those positive test, it must be, absolutely shattering for many people. So our thoughts go out to them and many other producers out there who are also making shows without insurance, because some of these territories we talked about it the other day. In Spain, for example, there's no real insurance scheme in place, and there's a lot of production still happening there on big budget productions. We wish them all the best, and it's obviously a very difficult time to navigate through making shows at the moment. Fantastic, Jake. Thank you so much for coming on the show this week. It was fascinating to hear some of those really wide-ranging stories and giving us a last look at MIPCOM before we look ahead and hopefully to MIP TV coming together as a physical market. You never know. Hopefully, we'll keep all our fingers crossed. Thank you again for coming on, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So to wrap up our final MIPCOM special episode, I thought it might be appropriate just to think for a moment about the impact that MIPCOM and various other events not happening has on a conference town such as Cannes. And there are lots of businesses in the city that rely on trade from international travellers. And one that might be particularly familiar to many MIPCOM and MIP TV attendees is Brown Sugar, the gastropub that's situated on the Rue de Frère Pradignac. I hope I've got that pronunciation right. The street just behind the Grand Hotel. And I've certainly spent many a happy and late evening there after dinner with friends and colleagues over the years. It has to be the best post-dinner bar in Cannes. And I'm delighted to be joined by the owner of Brown Sugar, Gary Gregg. Gary, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine. And thanks for inviting me onto the show.
No, it's great to have you on. We'd all love to be in Cannes right now. I'm certainly missing it. Lots of my colleagues are as well. Tell us about the current restrictions that are in place in Cannes right now.
I think the restrictions we have is quite similar to yourselves in the UK. We're probably about 2 weeks ahead of you in terms of different restrictions being implemented. Right now, the bars have to close at 10 o'clock,
right.
10 p.m., and the bars and restaurants have to close at 12:30. So we fall into the bar-restaurant category. So thankfully, we're still open until 12:30. It is very challenging, though, because as you know, and as you just said yourself, we are a late-night bar. So the majority of our business is done between, let's say, 11 o'clock in the evening until 2:30 in the morning. So we're closed where we would normally be doing 50% of our trade.
And obviously, this has been the case, or some form of restrictions have been in place for quite a few months now, right? And obviously, the lack of conferences that come into Cannes has been a major effect on your business. Can you take us through that, how COVID's affected your business this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take it from the beginning and take it from the beginning of 2020. We decided to close this year in January, February, simply because we had so many bookings and privatizations during the various congresses. We felt it was the one moment we had to sort of take a break. That wasn't a very smart choice. Right. So we reopened the bar on the 1st of March, and by the 15th of March, we went into lockdown for a period of 10 weeks. 15th of March, normally the first congress would be starting, which would be MIPIM, which is a real estate congress. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But that's actually, in monetary terms, it's our biggest week, and not just for us, but for many bars and restaurants. So after a quiet winter, that sort of kicks off your season and gives businesses the liquidity to push forward. So it's a very, very, very difficult situation for everybody because they didn't get that initial injection at the beginning of the season that we would normally have.
All right.
Then we come into April, and of course, no MIP TV, as you know, no Cannes Film Festival this year, no Cannes Lions, the advertising festival, which is probably our second biggest, second or first actually, biggest week. And so from the 15th of March to the 2nd of June, we were closed totally. Right. Fortunately, we could open from the 2nd of June and trade normally throughout the summer season.
Right.
Then the restrictions with the early closing started from around, trying to remember now, probably around the first week of September. So at least on the positive side, we had the summer.
Are there any business bailout packages available to businesses such as yours in France?
Well, there is, but the bailout packages, at the end of the day, you have to pay the money back. You need to remember this. Because we had to close, of course, we furloughed everybody and took advantage of the furlough scheme. But we made the decision not to go for any grants or any loans, which we would have to look to pay back at a later date. So we decided to try to manage as best as we could.
And how about the wider business community in Cannes? I mean, when we come back to Cannes, and I'm saying we in terms of the TV industry, when hopefully we're there at MIPTV or maybe MIPCOM next October, will it be the same? Will it look the same? Or do we expect a number of businesses not to be there? How's the wider business community coped?
I think it's a little bit too early to say. I don't see bars and restaurants going bankrupt and closing down today. I see many have decided to close for the winter, which is probably a smart idea because they can take advantage of the furlough and they just have to worry about covering their rent costs. So I can understand why some businesses have strategically decided to close their business. But, you have a town with, according to TripAdvisor, 700 restaurants, and we have a population of 70,000. Something's got to give. Something is going to happen. Something is going to happen, most definitely.
And presumably, there just isn't the off-season trade, there isn't the local trade to sustain all these businesses through the winter months or during the times when conferences can't come to Cannes.
Absolutely. We don't have a circular economy. Cannes thrives from tourism, and it thrives from the international community which come to Cannes. So we can't self-support ourselves. Maybe we're a little bit fortunate at Brown Sugar that we have a relatively large expatriate community who live down here, especially people working on the super yachts and in the yachting industry. So we do have our locals, but this month, just to give you an idea, we're probably looking at about a 70% decrease in sales.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we actually increased our sales in the summer in June, July, August, so that compared to last year. But on the back of being basically close to 5 months before that, it's tough. It's tough.
Listen, we're all really hoping that you can make it through the quiet times, and once we get back to Cannes, which is hopefully sooner rather than later, then I'm sure there's going to be a big party when we all can come back together again as a community and enjoy being together. And
absolutely,
Brown Sugar is certainly going to be the place that's going to be number one on the list for us to be visiting after dinner. So
that's nice. That's nice of you to say, Justin. I've painted quite a bleak picture. If I can paint quite a positive picture for a moment, what's been nice during the lockdown and during the last few months is the amount of customers and friends from around the world who I've been in contact with, from Australia, America, the UK, Denmark, and I know the bar means a lot to many people, and we've got a strategy. We expect it to be very difficult for the next few months, but we certainly expect to be here in the future, and we certainly expect things to pick up again in the future.
All right. Well, that's reassuring to know. Gary, best of luck with everything. Have a good winter.
Thank you very much.
And we can't wait to see you again when the sun starts shining in 2021. I'm
sure we'll be here, Justin, and good luck with your business as well. And it's nice to have a chat. It really, really is. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, that's all for our third and final MIPCOM special show. Thanks to all my guests for coming on these bonus shows. And if you haven't had enough of me already this week, our regular TellyCast is out tomorrow. And my guests are Richard Tulkhart, co-CEO of Buccaneer Media, and David Michel, co-founder of Federation Entertainment and founder and president of Cottonwood Media. Plus, TBI's Richard Middleton joins me for a new feature called Movers and Shakers, and K7 Media's Gertz Leases looks at different COVID-safe approaches to filming studio shows at the moment, including some tweaks to some of the best known TV formats. Until then, stay safe.